Have you ever been reading comics and wondered how supervillains find their hideouts or who builds all the crazy deadly traps they're often filled with? For the supervillains living in Gotham, they turn to two people, the Broker and the Carpenter, who I will tell you more about on this episode of Lesser Evils. The first time the Broker appeared was in Gotham City Sirens issue 1 from 2009, but he got his first real story in Batman Streets of Gotham issue 4 later that year. The man who would become the Broker started as a normal realtor with an eye to see that Gotham's growing crowd of costume criminals were a potential market no one had tapped yet. Gotham City had plenty of abandoned and foreclosed properties from back when the city was in its golden age that were ready to sell to the right buyer. This venture was very lucrative, and foregoing his real name, the realtor became known only as the Broker. Dealing with psychopaths like the Great White Shark is a brutal business. The Broker came prepared for the occasion when a client tried to change the deal. His policy is to keep things from getting personal so business goes smoothly. This policy is tested when he deals with the likes of Victor Zsasz, who was buying a warehouse in preparation for his child murder games. Batman confronts the Broker looking for information on Zsasz because he knows the villain is up to something bad. The Broker's valued protection is taken up by Robin, allowing Batman and the Broker to talk. Batman gives the Broker the chance to talk without resorting to violence. If this doesn't sound like Batman to you, you're right in that it isn't Bruce Wayne. At this time, Batman is Dick Grayson, who was a less brutal but still very effective Batman. The Broker knows that his reputation would be destroyed if the villains learned that he willingly helped Batman, so he disrespects the Dark Knight. This nicer Batman is still the Batman, and the Broker takes a beating before eventually giving Batman the information he wants. This beating does not hinder the Broker, and he gets back to business soon after. Catwoman was also a client of the Broker, who helped her buy a former animal shelter that he claims to have been sitting on with her in mind, but had in fact been kept for a different villain who wasn't too happy about losing it. After locking down the deal, the Broker gives Catwoman's roommates, Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, his business card. Being that they live in a comic book, the animal shelter suffers damage soon from an exploding Joker-mobile. To fix up the place, Catwoman enlists the talents of Jenna Duffy, who is also known as the Carpenter. Jenna Duffy was originally a con artist and thief who took on the Carpenter name when she joined up with the Mad Hatter's Wonderland gang in Detective Comics Volume 1, Issue 841. While the Carpenter handled safes alright, the Batman was a much different order. With the Wonderland gang disbanded, Catwoman offers to pay Carpenter to use her more blue-collar talents and repair her home. When asked why she would hire the Carpenter, Catwoman points out who better to renovate a supervillainess's lair than another villainess. The Carpenter takes the job and gets right to work. When Catwoman, Ivy, and Harley attempt to stop what turns out to be a fake Joker, Harley gets captured while Catwoman and Ivy get dropped into a death trap trying to crush them. With limited options, Catwoman makes a call to the Carpenter for help. Showing up in time, the Carpenter breaks the women out, and together they stop the fake Joker named Gagsworth Gagsworthy, who claims to be the Joker's first sidekick until he was replaced by Harley Quinn. Fuck, I love comics. Sometime after finishing the Catwoman's house, the Carpenter is hanging out in a bar in Gotham hustling a pair of men in a game of pool. The men aren't happy and intend to get their money back from the Carpenter when Batman crashes into the room. With the bar going crazy, the Carpenter loses her winnings and is not happy. Seeing Batman preoccupied with beating up patrons, the Carpenter grabs a pool cue and prepares to hit him. Unfortunately, she loses her nerve when Batman calls her out by name and tells her to leave. Not looking a gift horse in the mouth, the Carpenter proceeds to leave, but is intercepted by an employee of the Broker. Entering his limousine, the Carpenter and the Broker chat about her recent renovation work that has people talking. The Broker stays vague, but reveals that he has a client who would pay her to work on his project. After a brief session of haggling, the Carpenter is more than happy with her payday. It turns out that the building that she will be working on is the Monarch Theater. Just a little history for those less familiar, the Waynes were leaving a show at the Monarch Theater when they were attacked by a mugger. We all know how that ended. While checking the layout, the Carpenter is secretly being recorded by a man and his crew. Looking to test her, the man sends a pair of goons to attack the Carpenter. She whoops their ass using her work tools and is stopped just before she caves in one of their skulls. Her employer introduces himself as the director whose grand vision is to film the death of Batman, and he wants her to create the devices that will kill him. Accepting the job, the Carpenter draws out some death traps based on the director's shitty drawings, while she learns how the director wants to be the king of superhero snuff films. The Carpenter just smiles, knowing this guy will get taken down but she will have gotten paid. Earning her name, the Carpenter builds spike traps, deadly animatronics, as well as a trapdoor into a lethal animal pit inside the theater. While looking for the director, the Carpenter finds more of his awful drawings that reveal his intention of killing her as part of the film. Before the Carpenter can get away, she is discovered by a pair of the director's crew. The pair keeps the Carpenter's tools away from her, but she doesn't need them to whoop the two men again. With her tool belt back, the Carpenter really makes them sorry for hitting her. When the director arrives, the Carpenter stays cool and quits over the terrible professionalism. The Carpenter almost gets away, but gets stopped and is offered a big bonus to continue. Knowing that she would be killed if she resisted, the Carpenter accepts the terms. While constantly under watch, the Carpenter puts together her own plan. After the director puts his master plan into motion, he is angered when he sees Batman discover a clue left for him by the Carpenter. Infuriated, the director sends his goons to get the Carpenter, but her prepared traps buy her enough time for Batman to arrive. While Batman makes his way through the death traps and thugs, the Carpenter gets held up by the director. Letting the egomaniac talk, the Carpenter moves him right over the pitfall, where he drops into a pool filled with electric eels. When Batman interrogates her, the Carpenter lies and tells him that she was kidnapped and forced to work for the director. Batman doesn't turn the Carpenter over to the police, but tells her to get out of Gotham. On her way to her hometown of Keystone City, the Carpenter gets a call from the broker about fixing up an ice rink for Mr. Freeze. Learning about the pay, the Carpenter turns her van around and heads back to Gotham. That was the last appearance of the broker and the Carpenter. So why do I think the broker and the Carpenter are worth taking a look at? The broker serves a purpose that just gets overlooked in the crazy world of superhero comics. When supervillains come back, they need a base worthy of their infamy, and the broker will find it for them. The broker was a smooth player who walked the lines between a white-collar businessman and an accessory to a crime. The guy had nerves of steel and was willing to stare down men who murder for fun, then get them to pay him. The broker was willing to pay the price to operate in Gotham with all of its dangers. When one of those dangers is the Batman, I think that's worth some respect. The Carpenter serves another role that's overlooked by readers, and that is the person who customizes the villain lairs. Somebody has to be in charge of making the bases and hideouts fit for the new occupants. Unlike the broker, the Carpenter can put on an ass-whooping clinic with her own utility belt. Even when her life was on the line, the Carpenter had a plan and managed to even get a pardon from the Batman, even if it was the nice Batman. I would totally read a series about these two characters that lets the readers see the behind-the-scenes workings of supervillainy. Hopefully both will appear again, because supervillains love self-destruct mechanisms, and superheroes really love to break things, providing plenty of work for both the broker and the Carpenter.